All right, let's get right into it. Today we are talking about something fascinating and honestly something a lot of us have seen, that almost magnetic pull some people have towards chaos, conflict, and yeah, drama. So let me just ask you straight up. Does this sound familiar? Do you, or maybe someone you know, just seem to be constantly surrounded by intense situations? If you're nodding along right now, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to unpack what's really going on here. Okay, so first up, the allure of chaos. Let's start by figuring out what this kind of argumentative personality actually looks like in the wild. Let's see if any of this feels familiar. So, what are the dead giveaways? Well, it's like their personal motto is just I object. You'll notice that in their world, other people are always the ones starting things. It's never them. That phrase, it's your fault, yeah, that's a classic. And trying to get them to see your side of things, it can feel like talking to a brick wall. But here's the really wild part. The research shows they can actually get a little boost, a good feeling from kicking off an argument. Which brings us to the big question, right? Why? Why does this happen? Let's dig into that now and really understand the why behind the behavior, because it's almost never as simple as someone just liking to argue. Okay, so the sources we're digging into actually use a pretty strong term for this: conflict addict. Now, we have to be clear here. They're using addict in a looser sense, not like a formal clinical diagnosis. But it gets the point across, right? It's someone who actively seeks out conflict, even if it means risking friendships or their reputation, all because that chaos, well, it actually feels more normal, more familiar than peace does. And check this out. This is where it gets really interesting on a physical level. When our bodies go into a stress response, the heart starts racing, adrenaline is pumping, most of us recognize that as stress. But for some people, they mislabel that exact same feeling. They call it excitement. And if you think conflict is exciting, well, you're going to keep going back for more. So where does this all come from? Well, there are a few potential root causes. For some folks, especially those with ADHD, that adrenaline rush can actually bring on a strange sense of calm and focus. For others, it could be a subconscious way of getting attention. Or maybe it's an old, outdated defense mechanism that's trying to protect a fragile sense of self-worth. And, if you grew up surrounded by chaos, it just starts to feel normal. It becomes a habit and a really, really tough one to break. And this is so crucial. While this behavior might be filling some kind of need deep down, it comes with a massive price tag. So let's talk about the real, tangible cost of living in a state of constant chaos. And you can see it right here. The damage isn't just in one little corner of a person's life. This pattern of conflict is like an invasive weed. It winds its way into everything. It puts a huge strain on relationships. It can totally sabotage a career. And yeah, it takes a massive toll on both your mental and your physical health. It's a pattern that touches and damages the whole shebang. Let's break down the real damage here. We're talking about trashed personal relationships, which leads to feeling totally isolated. It causes huge problems at work. And it's not just emotional. The physical cost is serious. There's this scientific term for it: allostatic load. The best way to think about it is like you're constantly redlining a car's engine, just flooring it, day in and day out. Sooner or later, that constant strain, that wear and tear is going to cause a breakdown. And for our bodies, that can mean an increased risk for really serious stuff, like heart disease. Okay, that's the problem, and it is a heavy one. But the good news is there is absolutely a path forward. So let's get into the toolkit, the actual actionable things you can do to build lasting change and find a more peaceful way to live. Okay, so here it is, a really clear 5-step plan to break this cycle. First things first, you got to ask yourself, why? Seriously, what are you getting from all this conflict that you're not getting from peace? Step 2 is all about boundaries, learning to protect your time and your energy. Then step 3, you have to actively practice being calm. This is huge. Things like deep breathing or meditation, it's about making tranquility feel normal, not weird. Number 4 is a total game changer. Just don't take the bait. You don't have to show up to every argument you're invited to. And last but not least, number 5, there is zero shame in getting professional help. It's not weakness, it's strength. It's about learning new, better ways to handle things. But what if it's not you? What if you're the one living or working with someone like this? Well, the advice is to completely change your strategy. First, understand that their behavior is usually a defense mechanism, not a personal attack on you. Next, try to avoid asking their opinion and instead just state your need directly, like, I need this done. And definitely don't say, I don't want to argue, but, because that's basically rolling out the welcome mat for a fight. The most powerful thing you can do? Just walk away from the argument. You are not going to reason with them when they're in that state. And all of this leads to the final and honestly the most empowering part of this whole journey. It's about moving from an automatic, subconscious defense mechanism to a conscious choice about how you want to live. I absolutely love this quote from one of the sources we looked at. It says, "The vast majority of people engage in unhealthy and maladaptive behaviors simply because they haven't learned any better." It's just such a great reminder to lead with empathy for ourselves and for others instead of judgment. And this, right here, is the key takeaway. If there's one thing you remember, let it be this. Chronic arguing is usually just an old, outdated defense mechanism. It is not a character flaw. And the best part? Because it was learned, it can be unlearned. Real change is possible. So, as we bring this all together, I want to leave you with this one final thought, a question that really gets to the heart of it. Look, we all have a finite amount of time and energy on this planet, every single day. You can spend it building things up, or you can spend it tearing things down. The choice really is yours. So, which will it be?